Great day in the morning, Bravehearts, Urbanites, and SEQ Nation. And welcome to my Friday morning, January 30th, and it is my baby son's birthday. He is 13 years old. And I talked to him this morning, and what makes it so interesting is that he has like this distinct giggle. And I made him giggle twice. Imagine that. 13 years old. And your 13-year-old son at that. The moment when your 13-year-old son giggles at what you say. Priceless. So, I come bearing some intellectual goodies. I went to a workshop yesterday. It was a workshop that was held by the Foundation Center. And the Foundation Center is downtown on K Street, and they specialize in all sorts of nonprofit, foundation building, entrepreneurship, especially startup entrepreneurship. They have an elaborate spread of complimentary courses that are real good and meaty in content. And they also have a library, which amazes me. And so, and I have to say, okay, let me, before I confess, and before we get into confession mode, let's do this. Okay, so yesterday's, and I always say it, I've been joked at before. So I do not say yesterday. I say yesterday. I fully know how to enunciate, to pronounce the word. I know how to pronounce the word, okay? I'm going to say yesterday because that's the way I like to say it. I like the way I hear it roll off the tongue and into the ear. Yesterday, okay? So yesterday, when I went to the workshop, is called A Social Entrepreneur's Guide to Business Foundation. At the brink of 2015, I had to get used to the notion that I'm a social engineer. Your power lies in the belief of the image as you see yourself, not the image as someone else sees you. It's the power in knowing thyself. So your personal power comes by way of the way you view yourself, right? So for a long time, I view myself as inadequate, damaged goods, emotionally assassinated. I have to say, I'm still probably going to wear my emotional assassinated badge, because I think that me being close to the emotionally assassinated, allows me to live in my purpose. It also solidifies and reconfirms me being and going through certification just to understand the dynamic of emotional intelligence. Anyone who knows me knows I am urban mentorship. I am urban mentorship, and I am social and emotional intelligence. But when I think of social engineers, Of course, you know the names. I think of Nelson Mandela. I think of Frederick Douglass. I think of MLK Jr. I think of Malcolm X. I think of Gandhi. I think of Bessie Coleman. I think of, Harriet Tubman, Sojourner Truth, Alice Wright. I think of Ida B. Wells and Madam C.J. Walker, and of course the countless Marcus Garvey, T.J. I'm going too fast. Booker T. W.E.B. Du Bois. Those are the ones when I think of, and just not them. Of course, it's across the board. Of all the urban names of who I view as being social changers. They were actually those that made sure that the civil liberties of our people were at least acknowledged. I mean, of course, they had a hell of a time making sure that folk would uphold it and honor it, but they at least made it so that folks couldn't easily forget about the injustices surrounding the liberties of other humans. So to have someone tell you that you are an activist, you are a social engineer, and then to hear yesterday me be referred to as a social entrepreneur, as well as a social innovator. Yeah, I wrote all this stuff down because I'm soaking it in, because I need to be able to allow that into my vocabulary when I speak of myself, when how I view myself. So it was good to see these terminologies because it gave me a more heightened perception of myself. Because as I say all the time, there's two sides to a coin. I don't care what circle coin it is. I don't care if it's a circle of life. It really doesn't matter. Every situation has a flip side. Every situation. Every situation. Speaking of which, I am getting ready to do, well, I am hoping to do. I am looking forward to accomplishing. Where's my Newton's third law of motion? Because you gotta think about it. Everything has its equal opposite. It's direct equal opposite. No matter what it is, night and day, male and female, top and bottom, doesn't matter. Left side, right side. It all has its, because I mean, if you think about it, everything either sways this way or that way, and then the middle, that balance is what the gurus of therapeutic intelligence is telling us to strive for that balance. You can't be too good and you can't be too bad. Aim for that balance, which means that you are acceptable, you accessible, you are, what's the word? None of those words are doing me any justice. You are open, you are willing to be open to, for the lack of a better flow. I'm going to leave it at that. Excuse me. I'm going to leave it at that. Okay, so to be open to balance means that you're going to accept the good and the bad. The indifference is where the balance is, meaning you're not swaying too far to the left or you're not swaying too far to the right. You seek balance. You're not scared of the too bad, and you don't become too comfortable with the too good. That kind of thing. So just know that I'm hoping what I am hoping. And you know what? I was thinking to myself not too long ago that I do kind of like a shabby job. I sort of suck when it comes to me making my articles and my written commentary readily available to those of the masses. I don't know, for some reason my written content is a lot more personal to me. It's a lot more intimate. And I know people and their criticisms is not nice. Yeah, can be a bit harsh. And I don't know if I'm ready for that. I don't. To critique my videos and whatever it is that I verbally say, have at it. But my written word, when I sit and I contemplate and I write it out or type it out and nah, that ain't gonna work. How about this? Nah, let's try this all together. Nah, let's take this whole sentence out and just let it be. Or let's replace this word with that word. Or I need to elaborate a little bit more on this. Or was this too wordy? You know, it really takes a lot out of me as a writer to be able to make sure that what I am writing is actually something of benefit to those that read it. So my reading pool, my audience at this particular moment is still very intimate. A lot of my work, I only invite you to come and view it. I don't necessarily like put it out there like that. I will post it and then only tell a few people to go and view it. I don't really broadcast it, but I am going to start doing that. I have been told many times that I am slighting myself, that I promote everybody but myself in my work. So yesterday, doing this workshop, I'm beginning to view myself as a social engineer, as a social innovator, as a civic entrepreneur. Take a listen to that, right? So, to view oneself as a civic entrepreneur, at some point one would have to begin to endorse and promote oneself. Because how else will anybody know what it is that you are doing? What you stand for, what you believe, what you're fighting for, what are you working towards, what are you hoping to achieve, what are you hoping to minimize or rectify, whatever, whatever. That the momentum of the movement is not going to build its power if I do not start to put it out there, right? So in the library, after the workshop was over, I went into the library, and I have to say, it's more than a library. It's like a resource center. It has a computer lab, all sorts of content for establishing nonprofits, on philanthropy, on civic engineering, social engineering, but they really deal with the startup phase. Now they take you all the way through, but they make sure that the starter has valuable insight to launch. And I thought that was pretty cool because I am an entry level type of person too. I like to make sure that whoever is beginning to do whatever it is that they do, that they're fully equipped at the start. Makes for a better launch. So I ran into two books. There were two books that I ran into, and I am going to tell you what both of the titles are. Okay, so my favorite, and I'm going to read passages from this particular book. And the other one I didn't really get a chance to visit with, but I think the Foundation Center, at least the library of the Foundation Center, which is located at 1627 K Street Northwest, is probably on the third floor. It's probably going to become my weekly hangout. For one, it's a very specific type of library. Now, there is no secret that I am an advocate for DC public libraries. But I have to say, well, any public library, to tell you the truth. But I have to say, after a while, it gets a bit rowdy. And that's one portion of life that I just cannot stand. it's an injustice for libraries to be rowdy, period. But this particular library, I know if it's rowdiness, it's on a very few, it's on a limited topic base. So to still be a very targeted type conversation, or it'll be out in the lobby somewhere. It won't actually take place in the library. So I think I found me a hideout. I found me a hideout with all kinds of content that have been itching for so long to get my hands on. Okay, so the first book is called The Power of Social Innovation, and it is by Stephen Goldsmith. And believe it or not, had not heard his name prior to yesterday. I said it yesterday. Prior to yesterday. Had never heard of him. Come to find out he was a mayor. I don't remember. I didn't document all of that. I just, I was so, yeah. So he's a mayor somewhere. But what caught my attention when I was reading through the summary, which made me like crack open the book, he served as chairman for the District of Columbia Anacostia Redevelopment Corporation. And if for those who live in DC or the surrounding area, know that they put quite a bit of money. And if I 600 no 65 million, was that it? Don't hold me to that, but I want to say that it was about $65 million. And I really think that that's still kind of like on the low end for some reason. It just, something is telling me that figure was higher than that. But yeah, they rounded up quite a bit of dollars to revitalize Anacostia. And they're coming along. They're coming along pretty well. There's a lot of things that we don't know about that entire deal that took place. Goldsmith shares some of that as he was the chairman. And I guess right at this moment, since the plans are now fully underway, that, a lot of it is not considered privileged information anymore, so he can go ahead on and publish it, right? So with Anacostia being the focal point for him as chairman for so long, of course he started to dabble in the demographics, and he started to reach out to the researchers of that portion of Chocolate City, and he came up with some interesting statistics. Now, this is not to say that we don't already know that the level of humanity is still being sucked out through injustices and social injustices, racial injustices, cultural injustices, poverty, ignorance, all kinds of things. There are all kinds of elements that play into the sucking of the urban soul socially, collectively. You hear my doggy? He mad. Something going on up there. Okay, so I'm going to read to you some of the things that I pulled, and this was just a couple of things that I pulled out of the intro. This is not. I didn't even get a chat. I did because I took the metro. I didn't want to get tied up in that rush hour combustion, so I didn't stay as long as I would have liked to. But here are the stats. So it says, according to U.S. Census, the U.S. Census reports a notable increase in the number of citizens living in poverty in 2008. Almost 40 million Americans. Almost 40 million Americans living in poverty. I can say for the last 5 years, I am part of this statistic. What I'm happy to report is that even though it's been a long time coming, I do see light at the end of my tunnel. And I have to say, because of my complexity, I'm probably journeying down like 4 or 5 tunnels at the same time. Who could do that, right? But what's interesting is that all of those tunnels, I see some type of light now. And some tunnels, the light is a lot more brighter than others, but it's not total darkness anymore. At the brink of 2009, total darkness. 2011, yeah, I wanted to off myself like immediately. It's so a miracle that I'm even sitting here and saying what I would, as relatively sane as I can be, striving for balance from, the balance of mind, body, and soul. But I see light. I see light. Oh, yeah, I do. I see light. So you can't appreciate the struggle until you've met it firsthand. You won't honor struggle until you've danced with it. 40 million Americans. So then he goes on to say the high school graduation rates for students of color are as low as 33%. Now, I have to say that because this was published in 2009, these are the stats of what was going on when he wrote it. It's now 2015, even though we have one day left in January. I wonder what the current stats. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna put it out there for all those that's part of the DC Urban Mentors crew. If you have someone who can get us current stats, I would love to have them. You are welcome to email them to us, dcurbanmentors@gmail.com. Would love a copy of the real current stats. So, high school graduation rates for students of color are as low as 33%, and horribly over 60% of urban males who drop out of high school at some point find themselves in prison. Now, I read that and immediately, right there in the library, immediately I thought, how amazing is it that when when anything's written with regards to urban men, they always try to make it seem like the reason why they are in prison is because of their lack of education. I don't particularly agree with that. Now, I will say that the lack of education will lead to the opportunities that's presented to you with regards to income generation may be a bit on the dark side, which will ultimately lead you into prison. But there are tons of urban men who are in prison for an array of other reasons, and they have high school diplomas. So, and maybe I read it wrong, I don't know, but the way it felt was that the 60% is because of those who drop out of high school. And like I've said before, I don't necessarily think that the average public schooling is adequate enough for our urban men. It's not giving them anything to want to connect with. And sometimes the social ramifications of where we live want to say that if you do not make certain scores, if certain scores are not visible inside and outside of your learning, that you are inadequate in some way, which is so not true. Before the era of public schooling, people were self-taught. In the days of Frederick Douglass taught himself. and became one of the greatest urban orators on the planet. I have his picture. I have his picture on my wall that I look at. I look at it quite a bit. I know that, back in our teenage days, we had posters up. As a matter of fact, I still have, I got my poster of Run DMC and I got my poster of Freddie Jackson. Those are my, those are still like my high school crushes. So I still have their posters on the wall, period. I'm a visual person. So I need to look around and see certain things because my mind be doing this all the time. So if I can focus my eye on something, it allows me to travel another dimension for a little while. I travel in the dimension of Frederick Douglass quite a bit because not only did they abuse, not only did they not, I'm sorry, back in those days, not only did they not abuse the resource of electricity, where their lives were conducive to sunlight, they did all that they needed to do during sunlight, and there were some that still worked after dusk, but very little. And they used candles, they used very natural resources. They did not suck the earth and the cosmos of all its energetic energy to give you light bulbs. And don't get me wrong, I love my light bulbs. I love my light bulbs. It minimized, the fires and all that kind of stuff. So don't get me wrong. But I think back to him a lot. And I think back to how he taught himself to read. Back then, it was against the law for Black folk to read anything, let alone being able to comprehend, being able to perceptualize, and then process it and spit it back out to the masses so that the masses could understand on a very level, very comprehensive playing ground that this shit is bogus. So, to rely on public schooling, we have become so lazy in our intellectual values. The human intelligence is so massive. And it was bad enough to see the ratios of how much brain matter we actually use. But now it's to the point where we're not even acknowledging the power that we have. I am so not happy with the way life is going socially these days. Socially, we suck. And yes, I'm the bearer of bad news. I'm the bearer of bad news most of the time. That's just kind of like where I live at. You have enough people with the fairy dust and the positive woo woo woo, and everybody got to be all woo woo woo. It's got to be some balance. It's got to be some balance. And I attract that kind of stuff. I am the one that's going to have you, listen up to the bad points because you got enough hoopla with the positive stuff. So who gives you the balance of the negative stuff, or who gives you the balance of the negative potential? I keep my eye on evil because I know it's slick. It's very clever. It has a very, slickness with it. So if I can keep my eye on it, and I ain't saying that I see or have notions of it all, but that I do see, I'm going to do what I do and get into my Petey Green aura. Yeah, that's another one. You know what? I need to find me a Petey Green poster, and I want a big one, right front line and center, so that I can make sure that I understand the landing strip of what it is that I was brought here to do. I am Petey Green's ancestor. I live in his legacy. That's another social engineer. No, tell you the truth, Petey Green was a social innovator. Petey Green used his voice to educate and challenge and provoke social justice. He made you question your logic and your values. Yeah. Okay, so I digress. I digress. 60% of urban men. DC urban mentors That's our makeup. We are the urban men. We represent that 60% with regards to advocating its well being, its livelihood, its ability to rise up so that this 60% can depreciate. It's got to go down. The urban man has to rise up so that this number of statistics can go down. So then he goes on to say many children live in turbulent homes, often with a parent missing, let alone in a state of marriage. Many of you know how I feel about this pseudoism that they, when I say they, social molders, the social, those that socially mold America, would like for you to believe in this pseudo state of marriage where it's really just a dressed up form of a business deal, a legalized business deal. Anyway, so it says many children live in turbulent homes, often with a parent missing, let alone in a state of marriage. Homelessness, substance abuse, and domestic violence afflict far too many. Now, like I said, this is not new information. I just wrote it down just because this is someone who served on the board to revitalize Anacostia. And so these were the stats that he ran across as he was developing this particular portion of the city. So it goes on to say the number of foster children, many abused or neglected, now approaches 1 million per year. Maybe I'll leave my comment with regards to that for, I'm going to hold it for a minute. I'm just going to hold it for a little while. About the same number of prisoners will be released back into communities each year, and 2/3 of them will eventually be reincarcerated. Which is another thing that DC Urban Mentors is determined to help remedy. We, me, but we, for the most part, we as a unit will work tirelessly to bring that number down. The re-entry rate needs to be in the single digits, and it will if I have anything to do with it. You must know thyself. And I truly believe, even though it's a portion of life that it seems like Black folk are not interested in, they are not interested in collecting the data that will introduce them to their real selves and live from that projection. And I will preach it until I die. You gotta find your ways to understand you. And on the blog, roll through your virtual hood, by golly wow. Get there. See what's up there. At least see what's up there. I think it's pretty pleasing to the eyeball, so at least go up there and see. Just go. DCUrbanMentors.blogspot.com. Go up there. Just go and scroll and browse and see what's going on. DCUrbanMentors.blogspot.com. On the blog, there are links that will direct you to the assessments that you can begin undergoing that will render you data about yourself. It is not like the files at the therapist's office. It is not to accumulate all of the bad. It's to give you a balanced view of your characteristics. They are not 100%, but like I've said before, everyone who I've directed to take these particular assessments, never has it been under 80% agreement with what was shown to them. Usually my feedback stays in the higher 90 percentile, and it's always a whole bunch of amazement, like that is so me. So me. And then I really like when they come back to me and say, I knew that was me, I just didn't really understand how to put it in words. Or, yeah, I've heard people say that about me, but to see it in words, to see it structured in stats and in plain English, takes it to a whole nother level. So I like those conversations of epiphany. That's why our theme for 2015 is Epiphany. It's Epiphany 2015. I love Epiphany. I love it when Epiphany shows up. I love it when creativity shows up. I love it when wisdom shows up. I love it when they show up. When those ladies of liberty show up, that's my dream team. See, people look at wisdom and epiphany and creativity and what's the other one? Comedy, the music and art, all the artistic values, all of the segues of the 9 muses. You know, Greek mythology, the 9 muses. Zeus was their daddy, if I'm not mistaken. And I'm still I'm still the novice scholar when it comes to Greek mythology, but I am getting into it. So give me maybe another 6 months or so and I will definitely have the Greek myth for you. But in the meantime, I'm just going to skirt around some of the stuff, and hopefully those who really, really know will get it. If you don't get it, you don't get it. So, yeah, so I really think that when they show up, they're actually spirits that come show up and hang with you. It's not wisdom. Wisdom, I mean, and even in divine literature, wisdom is referred to as a woman, she. I'm the one who took it a couple of steps further with saying, well, if wisdom is a she, epiphany has got to be a she, and so is creativity. And those are gotta be, they gotta be the crew that hangs together. Just imagine being in a room, in a quiet room, you have reached your moment of solitude, and you feel the presence of wisdom, creativity, and epiphany. You just feel and sense their presence, and you know that they are with you, and things of your creative nature just start to pop and flow and sparkle and do all of that. Yeah. So I am claiming I have invited Epiphany to come hang with DC Urban Mentors all year. I am hoping that she takes us up on this invitation, as well as she brings her friends wisdom and creativity, and they hang with us the entire year. I would like for them to hang with us for a lifetime, but I'm not sure exactly how that works in the heavens. So all I can do is ask for it. You have not because you ask not. So I am asking. I have been asking. She and all her crew have a standing invitation to come hang out with DC Urban Mentors wherever we branch to. They are always welcome. Because we have to walk with wisdom. We have to walk with creativity. We have to walk with epiphany. Only in their presence will we innovate. There's no other way, because the statistics are deadly They're absolutely deadly. So he goes on to say that there's an organization called America's Promise Alliance. And back then, the CEO was Marguerite. I don't know how to pronounce her last name, so I'm going to spell it Kondracke. And the chairperson of that organization is Alma, Alma Powell, Powell. They took a survey right around the brink when the Anacostia project was about to be underway. They took a survey, and Goldsmith says that he was quite surprised at the low, very low percentage of those living within that specific demographic that felt like the American dream did not even apply to them. And a lot of them didn't even know what the American dream was. And when I read that yesterday, the book was sitting right here in front of me, and this is exactly how I found myself just staring into the window of the computer lab. Nobody was in the computer lab, but where I was sitting, I could see directly into it, and I just found myself, I had to snap myself out of it because I realized that I was in this hypnotic gaze in a room full of strangers. And even though it wasn't particularly strange what it was that I was doing, because the book was right in front of me and they had already seen me reading it, but I know I could feel it. My stillness scared me. And I'm just sitting there like, the American dream. And I just said this to the kid's father this morning. We had a very, very good conversation this morning. And I called a lot who don't know me, like know me personally, don't know that my children live with my ex-husband. And I can't say that wasn't a harmonic agreement. I mean, we are so much better than we used to be. But it took a little feuding. And sometimes, like I say before, sometimes I think I am still the thorn in his side. Thank God for love. That's all I can say. Thank God for love. I swear I appreciate those who love me because I know that look. So like my son's daughter, Lord have mercy, I'm sorry. My son's girlfriend. She was on the phone with me one day and I was just I was just having one of my moments. I was in one of my philosophical moments. I'm talking about like to the 10th power. She was like, "Ma, you are a piece of work." And I had to say to her, I will take that as a compliment. At least you ain't say I was a piece of shit. So I'll take that. I will take it because I know that it gets a little weird over here. It get weird over here. So we were talking about this morning, the American dream and how it's viewed. And like I told him, and I do not bite my tongue when I say this, and I don't care who you are, I will say it because it's truth. And the truth is, we urban folk, and I say, and I have to narrow it down a little bit so people can understand my terminology because in some instances I make up my own words. I am a literator, and I know I'm getting totally off, but let me just say this real quick. There is a word called literator. Okay, it's just like an entrepreneur or a restaurateur. It's the self-starter of that particular genre of industry. Okay, so it is not literature spelled wrong. No, go look it up. It's called a literator. A literator. And I have to write it to be able to spell it for real. But a literateur, it's spelled Litterateurs. Well, I put the plural on there because of my calling card. But Litteratu. Slow down there. Skirt. Erase that. Slow down. I get a little excited about this because everybody they want to spell check what's on my calling card. I know what I wrote on here. It's a word. It really means something. Littereur. A literateur. So because I am a literateur, which means a person who is of advocacy or endorsement or endorsee of literature. Because I am one of those, novice, but I'm still one all the same, I will make up my own words. I play around with words and sentences and string them and do whatever it is that I want to do to them. I just have my way with them. So it leaves me to have to explain a lot. And I'm an educator at heart, so I don't mind taking a moment out to explain myself. Sometimes I think I go a little too in depth. Sometimes it seems like, they don't want to hear all that, but I refuse to let things go without explanation anymore. That's how things get misconstrued and assumed wrongly and all that other kind of bullshit. So I will take the extra time to explain myself. When I say urban, I am not necessarily, now the majority are black folk, yes, but there are some that are outside the demographic of being black that is still considered urban, which means they struggle like we do. They walk the poverty line like we do. They are being discriminated against like we are. They are being subjected to all sorts of secret injustices like we are. They are emotionally enslaved, intellectually impoverished, just like we are. That's what I mean when I say urban folk. Okay? Still saying that the stem, the origination is the African American. But because we are a cesspool of all sorts of cultures, being an African American doesn't really do it for me. It just seems like it leaves some things out of my authenticity, which my ancestors struggled to give me. Good, bad, or indifferent, remember? Finding that balance. And what makes it so interesting is that and I know this will probably make some people just draws drop. Where's your mind at this morning, Fed? Make some people's jaw drop what I'm about to say, but I'm going to say it anyway. Right now, where we stand culturally, I am me, myself. Not speaking for DC Urban Mentors. I am speaking for me, Fed. The now recognized social engineer that I am. I am glad, even with all of our struggles and inhumane inflictions, I am glad to be amongst the people and amongst the ancestry that helped really truly build this nation. Even though it's an element of people that have been just totally dehumanized, or attempts. There's been just centuries of attempts on the urban soul to just crush it and demolish it altogether, but it won't go away. So I think that I'm more honored to be part of the urban folk than to be part of the European folk. And I don't know how to say this right at the moment, because see, when I'm talking to my friends and we just sitting around kicking a bobo, I'll say it however I feel. I have to be kind of tactful here because it's going into the infamous virtuality and like I say before, folks have a way of misconstruing, and they just real raggedy with it when it comes to being able to absorb how you personally feel about something, as if you don't have an opinion like they do. We all have assholes. So I am honored to be amongst those that were brought over here the way that we were brought over here. And regardless of the injustices, we as a people, we still triumph because we have majorly overcome a lot of the hardships where if the soul of the urban folk was not as strong, we'd probably be extinct by now. And we're not. Um, I'm glad, see, in America, they want to say that the European is the privileged, that they have this whole white privilege thing that they're dealing with or whatever. You don't have to deal with ghetto loans, and you don't have to deal with truncated interest rates, and you don't have to deal with the ghetto, and you don't have to deal with ignorance and being whatever it is, whatever the injustice is about being urban. So they have this white privilege because they can go anywhere and do anything and woo woo woo. But to be labeled a cultural oppressor is not privilege. Because they can physically get around and have deep pockets. They have deep pockets because they were the ones who set out to be here. We were the ones who were bound in chains. We came as the hired help. And we were talking about that this morning in our conversation. And the kid's dad offered up some real good insight to me about the logic to equality and social injustice. Will we both come to the conclusion that I still would not be any other culture. I mean, because if you think about it, let's just say, let's just say out in the cosmos, out in the heavens, before you came into your human flesh, you had a choice of which culture you was going to be born in flesh in. And let's just say that the choice, the soul, the choice of the human soul, it's your choice. Let's just say it's your choice. It's your free will to come in whatever race of flesh that you choose. Even with that choice, even knowing that all of the heartache and bloodshed and just wretched dealings being black. And believe me when I say what I'm about to say, I don't say this lightly, and I don't say this because I was not part of Frederick Douglass's era. Because something tells me whether it was Frederick Douglass or Nat Turner or the Party of the Panthers, the injustice of oppressing another human just doesn't sit well with me. And because I know my human soul, that means that I'm going to feel how I feel, whether it's this era in time or that era in time or an era in time that hasn't happened yet. More than likely, the way I feel now is the way I would always feel regardless. And I am very happy that my choice of culture was the oppressed instead of the oppressor. I don't want to be part of a culture that dehumanizes another. And like I say, a lot of people don't necessarily, especially black folks who are in their feelings about the injustice, You can't be in your emotions about it. You need to understand how powerful your emotions are. You need to blend that with history. Go and dig through your historical value. It is tons of value there. Stop being scared to know about the way that you were treated, the way your ancestors were treated. They were treated that way so that we could know about it, so that we could yet take that information, churn it, and turn it into the present solutions, present remedies, present prescriptions. And we ain't talking about that man-made, superficial, synthetic, going to kill you soon type of prescriptions. We ain't talking about that. Talking about the intellectual prescriptions of those that take responsibility for themselves and get your ass somewhere and learn something. They're not going to give it to you. How you know that what you know and who you know are the two main elements to your maneuvering success in life is because it costs. But there are ways around it. If knowing something was not, then it wouldn't be so high priced. I wouldn't be $70,000 in debt and educational loans if knowing something was not one of the keys. The keys to opportunity are expensive. Most people, especially the average urbanite seems to be allergic to sitting down and quieting one's life and getting in front of the material and mastering the material that will allow you to generate the income you desire. Working someone else's job is not going to get you where you are supposed to be. What you are supposed to be doing is learning about yourself and then learning how to apply all the magnificentness of yourself to what it is your heart desires you to master. And together they will beautifully blend that will attract you income beyond your wildest dreams. You won't have to sell a thing if you learn about yourself and combine that. You know how chemistry, there are two components that you bind together. They are either going to combust or they're going to beautifully blend. What I know for a fact is if you take the component of knowing yourself and then take the component of mastering your heart's desire, when you blend these two components, they will beautifully blend, and that will form a magnetism that will have income attract you. Then you have to go schlepping through society and give these organizations and these companies and these corporations all sorts of time, all sorts of time. And when you work for somebody else, when you make mistakes, you are held accountable. And I'll say held accountable with regards to you could be fired and then your livelihood is shaken up. It's like, why do urbans rely on such a system that can be determined by somebody else's ill will or misconception or just blindness? So then you come into work, you give them 25 years of your life and service and experience and work horsepower and human resource and all of that. You give it all to this organization. You make one false move and yeah, okay, maybe you happen to be a bad guy. Maybe it was a lapse in integrity. Maybe you were going through something and what you decided on ended up being a really bad mistake. When I tell you that the workforce is so unforgiving that they even will blacklist you. They will blacklist you, which means that any other employer who wants to hire you, we're going to refer to that. They're going to see your name on that list. And even though you have made amends with it, you are okay with it, you know you made a mistake, you don't know how to tell that potential employer that you screwed up. No, your name is on that list. And so they put your resume in the freaking trash. So now you are 2-3 years unemployed, you still sending out resumes, and you are being so distressed, depressed. You are all sorts of whatever it is that the human soul goes through when it is not able to provide itself with goodness. So then your self-esteem goes down. You don't understand why you can't find no job. Woo, woo, woo. But you'll spend 3 years filling out application after application, going to these hideous ass job fairs. Job fairs is a waste of life. Back and forth, going to these employment centers, which is totally inefficient to me. But you won't go and sit somewhere quietly and listen to your heart, learn more about yourself, and combine the two. In 3 years, now, don't get me wrong, learning about yourself is a bit weird and it is a huge undertaking. But once you got it, you got it. Once you find you and stay devoted to never losing you, whatever you master, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter the industry, doesn't matter the job, doesn't. Once you find you and connect with you and then start to master whatever it is your heart tells you, but you will spend 3 years on unemployment and won't even the American dream. So I'm not with the standardized traditional image of the American dream. I have another image. And because I am an innovator, I am going to suggest this image to you now, and then I'm going to read this quote for those that deem themselves catalysts of change, and I'm going to end it there. In my mind, in my Willy Wonka type of imagination, the American dream is when one undergoes the due diligence to connect and find out, gather, and investigate self. And then it's a twofold. Then they go and they find out what it is that they desire deeply in their heart, and they go towards that. They take the time to court. So you gotta understand. Court your heart desires just like you court a woman. You have to be able to do that. And seeing as that chivalry is on life support, I fear that there's going to be some challenge there too. But challenge is overcoming. We're urban people. We have the strength of the unspeakable. So that's my ideal perception with regards to the American dream. Because everything else will magnetize, like it will find you. If you take the time, and see, what's interesting is that you hang out with us, hang out with DC Urban Mentors. We're going to direct you, especially if I have anything to do with it. We're going to direct you to find out more about yourself. And we're going to direct you to spend time listening to your heart. And we're going to direct you how to beautifully blend the two. And because we know magically, majestically, everything else will be damn near. Everything else will smooth and flow. Is that to say you'll never have any heartache? No, it's promised. It's promised. Bet on it. Bank on it. Save up for it. But you will become a magnet of your destiny when you find out more about yourself and when you move toward your heart's desires. So I'm going to end it on this quote from Clara Barton. She says, I have an almost complete disregard of precedent and a faith in the possibility of something better. It irritates me to be told how things have always been done. I defy the tyranny of precedent. I go for anything new that might improve the past. Now just imagine. I almost had an out of body moment yesterday when I read that too, because I immediately began to ask myself, what if Urban Mentors becomes this national entity with global reach, and all of the members of DCU felt like this? Well, all of them could stand and say, I have an almost complete disregard for precedent and a faith in the possibility of something better. It irritates me to be told how things have always been done. I defy the tyranny of precedent. I go for anything new that might improve the past. Now, she didn't say wipe out the past. She didn't say disregard the past or ignore the past or peek at the past. She said improve it, which means in order for you to improve it, you have to know how it was. You won't know where you're going, improvement, until you know where you've been. So you have to be able to be open to receiving what happened before you. You churn on that, you process that. And then moving forward, you improve. You improve upon it. So that is this episode of Coach's Chronicle. I believe that is it for now. Write it down, which is another thing that urban folk don't do enough of. You don't write stuff down. You be winging it. You be willy-nilly in it. And I know I jumped around, but that's what the Coach's Chronicle is. The Coach's Chronicle is my journal entry for the day, but it just happens to be on video, and I'm sharing it with those of DC Urban Mentors. Now, of course, spectators and naysayers are going to see it as well, but this is mainly for the mentors, my men, my mentors of DC Urban Mentors, especially if you lead or you're into social change or you're into the social injustices. The downfall of urban economics as a result of these social injustices. So if you are part of that crew, this message is for you. And yeah, I ramble. I go back and forth. I try to make sure that thoughts connect and, paradigms shift properly or smoothly and all of that. But it doesn't always happen like that. I am still human. Ultimately, I'm hoping that you feel me. That's what I'm hoping. I'm looking for the ones that feel me. And I still have to say that our pool of volunteers, our pool of man-force, our pool of human resources is hideously low. And that we cannot, watching Nelson Mandela. Y'all know, I say this regardless of who it is. Me and Nelson, we have the same personality type. See what I'm talking about when I say, power, you be able to understand the power in yourself. You look for your strengths. You seek them out. So being an INFJ and knowing that Nelson was imprisoned and, his life wasn't perfect, it allowed me to be a little bit more patient with myself, as well as be proud of my potentiality and my emotionality and my personality. So, in the movie, so he says, this is me by myself. And this is you and him and him. This is us individually, but together. is where the force comes in at together. So I know about me. I'm asking you to go and make the notion to know about you. But then I'm also asking you, you got to join forces with us. You have to join forces with us because our urban men are being neglected. And if we don't teach them to solidify themselves, to become awareness of their worth, we will become extinct. I'm not sure how long the urban soul can take such neglect to its people not realizing their power and potential. But if you're looking for American society to give you, the oppressed, anything other than a welfare check, maybe some food stamps, and probably a place to stay where it's a whole bunch of rowdiness. See, I have to say, I think I thank my I thank the people who love me because the type of life that I live, like, I'm reading all the time, I'm sifting through content all the time. If I had to, and I have to say, according to my little minimum income, probably like $3 a month, I generate $3 a month in income. Where could I live? Seriously. So now I have to rely on this regurgitative check every 30 days that the government gives me, and then the stipend, the voucher for food, and then stick me in this rowdy neighborhood, this one bedroom rowdy neighborhood. And because I like the bottom floor, you probably put me under somebody that has kids that's running all around the place because they don't want to give them something to occupy their time. And so I can't write, I can't do anything. My surroundings need to be quiet, and it's a bunch of shooting, and it's a bunch of hoopla going on, it's a bunch of fighting, and there's a bunch of current on going on. My income would not allow me to be in the solitude that I need just to be human, just to be who I am. It would always combat that. So, in our impoverished neighborhoods, I know that there are souls like me that wish they could go into their quiet home and close their doors and just read something or write something, create something, mold something, draw something. Okay, I digress again. I'm not going to hold you any longer. We are over our hour. What I'm going to say is that our next one, I am going to talk about the Foundation Center has private foundations that make grants to those who are of nonprofit status for artists, musicians, writers, and filmmakers. And it is no secret that I am putting the word out that I am looking for those who can join forces with me to help me create and design the documentary that is titled Living in Chocolate City as a Braveheart or an Urbanite. It's going to be something to that ramification. It is going to be a documentary about our black men, the ones who are doing and the ones who are not. Mainly because we need examples. We need examples of how it is that we should be. And those who are doing it and feel comfortable with the way that they're doing it, we need to hear from them. We can't rely on CBS, NBC, NSB, NBC, Sports Center, CNN, ESPN. We can't rely on them to give us our stories of our people. So I am looking for those who can help me not only document and accurately record, but to be able to film it up and put it all together so that it can be a remarkable finished product that will endorse our black men. So and I'm saying all that to say that us rounding up and getting into the grant opportunities that the Foundation Center is offering for artists, musicians, writers, filmmakers. I would like for us to collectively pursue the resources that they are putting before us. So that's it for now. That's it for now. So like I said, I'm going to get more in depth about that the more I find out about it. Yeah, and that's it. So I hope all will be well with you over the weekend. Roll through your virtual hood, dcurbanmentors.blogspot.com. If you need to get me on the phone, 301-899-0713. And I think that is it. So until next time, namaste.